Hundreds of people have died and have been killed or kidnapped by bandits in Zamfara State. There have been suspicions that criminality is a fallout of the artisanal mining of gold and lead in the state. The new measure banning mining was announced by the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, on Sunday in Abuja. But how will this solve the security issues in the state? Well, joining me in the studio to discuss this, I have Ambassador Roy Ohidebe. He is a security expert. It's good to have you join us, Ambassador Roy.
Thank you very
and of
much.
course, we are being joined also by Mr. Stephen Agiode. He's a legal practitioner and a member of ACT. It's good to join you, sir.
My pleasure.
It's good to have you here. All right, so I'll start with the antecedents of this. But first things first, it's a question that I have been playing with in my head. Why do governments or our leadership in this country always wait for situations to boil over, or maybe for us to protest and carry placards, and it looks more like there is no way out for them to start dealing with security issues such as banditry? And I mean, even cultism, issues that we could have nipped in the bud before it boiled over. So I'll start with you because you're the security expert, Ambassador Roy. Why?
Yeah, you see, one thing I've always opined is that the value of the greatest assets that we have in life is life. The value of every country is life, the life of the citizen. Now, when you talk about the life of the citizen being taken, and nobody brings any immediate action, hula baloo, and who cry and say we must solve these matters now, until it now spills over to millions of deaths, thousands of deaths into other states, and high-profile persons start getting attacked and injured and kidnapped. Then you will now hear the government clamping down on this and that. Why didn't they do it when one died, two died? That is the question. Now let me tell you about when you talk about responsibility and penalties. Any government official, whether you are in charge of the police, you are in charge of the army, you are in charge of the judiciary, you are any government official that is in a position to curb any incident that will take the life of a citizen and is not held responsible, and is even called into a committee to be looking for solutions how to solve the issue that has gone haywire, then that is where the problem is. Because if I'm responsible for an action I didn't take, and I didn't come out to say I did this because of lack of logistics, I could not meet this because of shortage of manpower, I could not do this because my men were not properly motivated, and I did not resign after I see people die, then there is a problem, and it will continue until people are held accountable when there is loss of life. We should dig in to find out who did not do what.
Okay, Barrister Stephen, I just, I'd like to tell you, this is one of the most ridiculous things I've heard in 2019, that a governor of a state, in a bid to solve the problem of banditry and the killings of people, has involved charmers to fight, whatever it is. And we're in the 21st century. And from what we know, from what we gather, Zamfara's issue has been ongoing. It's happened for a long time. Is getting snake charmers the best way to solve this situation? Is this us just taking 10 or 1,000 steps backwards?
The answer is quite obvious. I mean, what do you want to do with snake charmers?
Maybe they have IT, some technology we do not have access to.
We don't have access. It's unfortunate. The governor, Governor Yari, has over time displayed a level of incompetence in his handling of the affairs of that state. It's very unfortunate. This is the same state where, in response to a plague of illness, the other day he said it was caused by
God. Yes, he said
God,
for all the evils that had been happening in the state. It's another ridiculous thing.
It speaks also to our problems. There's a level of illiteracy in our society that needs to be addressed. We have a situation where we have 67% of our people illiterate. In Zamfara State, because of all this, you have The school start figures, I understand, the number of people who took school start in that state are just 28.
28?
28. So you can see the problem with that state. You can see that the governor is exploiting the ignorance of his own people. That's what is happening.
I'm just wondering, when we talk about, you know, yes, the one-eyed king in the land of the blind,
yes,
but there are other people who live in that state,
yes,
who may not necessarily be from the Zamfara State.
yeah,
That government also has, I'm sure, advisors who may not necessarily be as backward as you would, you know, want to make them look. What should be the responsibilities of those people in advising the government? I'm guessing also we have NGOs and, you know, human civil societies in that state. I don't want to believe that that state is a dead end. What are they all doing in also bringing to the attention of not just government but the rest of the world that there is a dearth of some form of information or access to information on how to deal with this situation?
Well, I still come back to the problem of education. If you have a huge deficit of education like you have in that state, in Nigeria in general, then in particular in that state, you can't expect much. You can't expect much. What happens is that the elite, the politicians, exploit the ignorance of the people in order to come to office and to stay in office. And that's really the problem that we're having.
Ambassador?
Well, let me come from a different angle. You see, because I'm embarrassed the way Nigerians behave, I inclusive. Okay? Now, if you have a state where there's an irresponsible government and making irresponsible statements and taking actions that also lead to more loss of lives, you want to tell me that, like what you are saying, that some people, lawyers and other committee of friends, concerned citizens, cannot come together, put money together and institute a case in the courts against the government from statutory ignorance, statutory responsibility, citing cases where a governor is supposed to have taken action or done XYZ and it was not done, and to stop the action of this kind of irresponsibility of calling chairmans. Now, if you also look at the area of our actions that does not show, you see, that's why I don't like it when Nigerians don't consult. You have a doctor, you have a lawyer, why don't you have a security consultant? Why people don't think that they should have a security consultant that should mentor them on the things they should do, actions they should take that should lead to their own security? People go to Abuja, they leave their states to go and buy houses. They go to the town in Lagos. There's a new town coming up in Lagos now, Eco Atlantic. So many big men are going there to buy houses. By the time you try to go back to your community, you will just meet the whole community full of miscreants, full of kidnappers, bandits, and they'll take you away or take your children
So
away.
you're saying what's happening in Zamfara is as a result of the fact that the people who are supposed to be spearheading peace in the communities have abandoned it?
We can't leave it for the government. We have people that were elites in their academics. We have people that are elites in their professionalism. We have people that could stand up against government. Because the army of ignorant youths that we are building today, the police cannot contain them. The army cannot contain them. Now we have said the federal government just said every foreigner should leave.
Yes.
Okay, once the foreigner leaves, you will be shocked that you still have those well-tutored in criminality that are still your citizens that you have not taken care of. So the more we continue to ignore our responsibilities for education, kindergarten care and concern for little children growing up, showing them how to behave, what are the statutory activities that you engage their mind to make it productive, then we are just killing ourselves. Because by the end of the day, you will see that everybody around you, even those that will come again to join the army, the police, that will wear the same uniform, they have been corrupted from youth.
This is sad, but then we did have some videos of the famous Kadaria Ahmed. She had some not interesting things to say about the governor of Zamfara State. She used some very colorful words. Let's take a listen.
We're here to tell the government and those that are in charge of security that Zamfara lives matter. Every time there are issues in other places, we come out, we protest, we march. And now that it is right at our own doorstep, we have to also come out and protest and march. Our people are being killed like they're flies, and it doesn't seem to matter to anybody. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're marching.
Now, there is a government in place in the states. Are we saying that that government has not done well enough?
As far as I'm concerned, that government is the most useless governor in the history of Nigeria.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Quote me.
You're right.
He is the most useless governor in the history of Nigeria. This is a governor whose reaction to the killings in his state was to resign as chief security officer.
Oh, yes.
He went on the record to say that he cannot be chief security officer. Yes. So I don't know what he's still doing in office. He doesn't care. He only cares about the people of Zamfara when it comes to politics.
Yes.
That's the only thing that matters to him. The fact that they're getting killed doesn't matter. He lives most of his life here in Zamfara, in Abuja. How can you govern a state for 8 years from Abuja? What sort of leadership is that?
That is a shit.
We're so happy he's on his way out.
Yes.
He's hopeless as a leader. He has not done well for our people. So under him, Zamfara has deteriorated. I grew up in Zamfara. A lot of people here don't understand when we talk about the Zamfara we grew up in because they don't know it. The Zamfara I grew up in was peaceful. It was affluent. We had businesses, we had ginneries, we had tanneries, we had textile, we had oil mills, we had sweet factories.
But everything's
Where
down.
are they now?
They're down.
And it is down to him and his godfather.
So what are we asking now?
We are asking for Muhammad Buhari,
to speak up,
the president of Nigeria, to show the people of Zamfara the same regard they have shown for him. For 2 elections now, they've come out in large numbers to vote for him. Can he, for goodness sake, show that he also cares about them? Can he provide security so that we can sleep in our homes?
Yes.
If this government, these politicians cannot do it, can we declare a state of emergency?
Yes. Better.
So that we can go to our homes. We can't visit home. I haven't been home in over a year because they kidnap you from your house. Then they...
She's not happy. She's very, 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 very vocal, and she, wow. But then let's talk solutions, because if the people of Zamfara are that hurt, of course, fathers must have been, have lost their children, husbands have lost wives, and all kinds of things. But again, I want to bring us to our attention the fact that the federal government had not said anything about this. Mr. President has done 4 years and is about to do another 4 years, and had not for once spoken about this issue. And this is one of the reasons why people went on this protest. The federal government and the state government playing the ostrich. Is it a case of who screams the loudest? Because Mr. President was quick to talk about the killing of Kolade Johnson, and I'm not in any way saying that is not important, because we're talking about the value of lives here. But Zamfara's case has been on over and over and over again. So let's talk about solutions. How do we, because as far as I'm concerned, you talked about the fact that it begins from molding, the child up to when he becomes an adult. Where do we start to nip this in the bud? Because it has gone bad. It's almost like a fish that is already rotten from the head. How do we deal with it? I'll start with you.
Okay. We have to take a historical perspective to this. Zamfara State has had a history of, perhaps one should just call it lawlessness. Executive lawlessness. The previous governor in that state declared Sharia law. The president in the constitution has the tools at hand to deal with executive lawlessness by state governors. That was around 1999 when Obasanjo was in power. What he ought to have done was to declare a state of emergency. There is clear provisions in Section 305 of the Constitution which allows the president, where there is clear and present danger or imminence of clear and present danger in a state, for the president to directly declare a state of emergency. If the governor does not do so, all he answers to is that he then has to approach the Senate and the House of Reps, and I don't think those ones will be irresponsible. The Constitution gives our president enormous powers to act. And if, when Obasanjo was in power, he did act, There would have been a precedent for acting when governors misbehave. Now we have a situation where another governor is misbehaving now. He started by saying he is not the chief security officer.
He resigned.
He resigned as a chief security. That's a clear abdication of duty. That means at that point there was no.
But some other people would say, make the excuse of the fact that he's just a chief security officer on paper, because every other security agency that is represented in the state gets his orders from the center, which is in Abuja. So yes, the governor is just the chief security officer in name, and then maybe he's a bit overwhelmed.
I don't think,
maybe.
I do not think he is that helpless. He operates under a system which is what we use all over the federation. And other governors have found ways of handling state commissioners. They have found ways politically of, after all, he's a member of your cabinet. They found ways to do that. I just think that in that state, there's a total collapse of executive responsibility. And Yari is simply following a tradition of taking advantage of laxity at presidential level, which did not start today.
That's interesting. I'll come back to you, Ambassador Roy. Now, you have been a security official. You have fought in wars. You know how these things are supposed to work. But you also did mention that the security officials in Zamfara State are somewhat overwhelmed, and they cannot deal with the rot that is already in society, being that, number one, ignorance plays a role. The fact that also maybe poverty and government somewhat abandoning their responsibility to the people, all of this plays a role. So where do we start security-wise in solving this problem? Sending the foreigners away and, you know, the police IG asking that that they're going to have an operation. I mean, in fact, we got a report saying that 16 police officers were killed so far, and they're going to, God forbid, they might lose more people. But this is the situation that security officials are facing. They have a JTF, but what about the security formations that are there on their own? What can they do?
Okay, I will continue from where he stopped. He stopped at the point where the executive and the state government, there are issues between who will perform, when to perform, and all the laxity involved. In Western climes, when a life is lost, that is a national tragedy. Okay? It is no more a state government affair. If any Nigerian dies in anywhere in Nigeria, the responsibility to act immediately leaves the state government's purview, because that person is a patriotic citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
But that doesn't happen in this part of the world.
So let's take it from there now. In that light, I will give you a short-term and a long-term action for this whole system failure we are seeing now. Let's look at the long-term action first. The long-term action should come in 3 stages. Number 1, it is every child born till when the child could walk, run, play, and talk. At that kindergarten, primary to secondary school level, the government should be fully involved in that child. That child should be taken care of like the phones our senators carry. They should be taken care of like the children of the executive arm of government. Those children should be recognized at that stage as the babies of the federal government. Once you follow that in long term, you now move to the middle class, the working class citizens of Nigeria. The government is supposed to follow through with that and see that that working class of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, they must be deployed to get jobs that are commensurate to what their capacity could deploy. They should be seen not to be shortchanged out of jobs. There should be sanity in the public sector where everybody gets what they are supposed to get. Then the third phase are those that are the elites. Everyone that has wealth must be able to account for the wealth. You don't just flaunt wealth anyhow like that. In fact, Nigerians should be held to the stage where they will be taking their wealth to Ghana or any other place to go and pose with it. You cannot just build houses here all of a sudden. Government should ask, how did you make your money? You can't just come up with all of that. That is a long-term strategy.
But quickly, government should ask, I'm guessing, the big houses, the big spenders, they're mostly politicians. And hence the reason why there's so much tussle for power every other day, because that seems to be the biggest business in Nigeria. So who's going to...
It's the short-term strategy will solve that. I've given you the long-term strategy. For short-term strategy, immediate action, IA, is this. You form immediate executive orders concerning kidnapping, concerning arson, banditry, and you release mobile courts to immediately constitute a legal system that will assign executive judicial penalties to that crime. It's a crime. So if also it now ties to, it's this person that sent us, we got guns from these persons, the police should be given the free hand and the enabling logistics to raise evidence against such persons that have been fueling all this banditry, drug pushing. We have heard of mineral resources now, all of that. Now, once you start that executive orders, you go and raise those cases that have been sleeping about people. Evans, the kidnapper, that case is still pending right now. All of these kidnapping cases, banditry cases, must have executive speed.
I wish I could let you go on, gentlemen, but we're out of time. Unfortunately, we need to wrap this up because of time. But I think we probably have to put together a seminar to, for long-term and short-term plans. But I want to thank you very much, Ambassador Roy Ohidive, and of course, Barrister Stephen Agiode. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Sometime soon we will talk about this again, and maybe we'll talk at length. All right, it's still Plus Politics. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we're still talking about the state of insecurity across the country. You don't want to miss it.